friends chiming in on the YouTube chat already.
Yeah, I was trying to catch up, and I'm like, wow,
I am
loving.
Yeah, it's been
all the different names I'm seeing.
I know. We've got a lot of new faces. We appreciate everybody chiming in there. I got a DM on Twitter. Somebody wanted to ask me.
Just you. Okay, I'll stay silent.
Well, you can chime in as well.
Well, they did DM you.
They did, but we can talk about it on the show. He says, what about the missed opportunity to bring in other talented guys if Raiola had committed earlier? A lot of guys that were interested but backed off once Raiola committed to Georgia. And that's a totally fair point. There probably would have been some additional opportunities for peer recruiting and things like that if Raiola had committed earlier. I don't necessarily. So there is a missed opportunity there. I'm not going to try and.
I don't know how much it actually hinders.
You're probably talking about a couple guys at most.
The window,
to be fair. But I also think here's what you're looking at. Okay. Especially if in year one, Raiola plays well and Nebraska looks good. Let's get crazy here. Okay. Because I'm in that kind of mood this morning. Let's say Nebraska wins 9 games next year. Okay. Not a crazy number, but a really good number. That'd be obviously a huge improvement with the way the schedule looks out from what we know right now. I know it's always dangerous and stupid to play like schedule look ahead games, but it's, December 19th, we're going to do it. I think 9 wins is reasonable and on the table. It would be a really, really good year, but I don't think it's out of the question. Let's say Nebraska wins 9 games with Dylan Raiola as a true freshman. What do you think the transfer portal looks like for Nebraska that year, right? You're going to have whatever wide receivers are going to want to come play with Dylan Raiola.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a ton of guys. So did it hurt this year's high school recruiting class? Absolutely. You're probably talking about 2 or 3 guys tops, so I don't think it's a ton, but they'd be high-end guys. I'm not trying to walk around that. But even with that missed opportunity, I still think there's going to be a ton of chances, whether it's in the spring transfer portal, whether it is next recruiting cycle, the 2025 recruiting cycle, which, by the way, I think is going to be a bonkers class for Nebraska. Like, I think that thing is going to be insane. And next year's transfer portal in this time period, you've still got 3 huge opportunities between now and Dylan Raiola's sophomore year at Nebraska to really put together some impressive classes. I think Nebraska's already started to go to work on the offensive line. I know a lot of people chiming in about the offensive line, and I'm curious where your head is because, first of all, from improvements from year 1 or year 0 to year 1
mm-hmm.
with Donovan Rayola, with Matt Rule, with largely the same guys in the room that we wanted to run out of town under the previous regime, they got dramatically better.
And now people are low-key excited that Bryce Benhart is coming back for another year.
I'm not just low-key, I'm thrilled. He was the most consistent and best offensive lineman for Nebraska this year, and I could not stand to see him on the field 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real thing, okay? And you've got a guy that everybody I know that knows about football is obsessed with in Sam Sledge, coming off of a redshirt year. People are obsessed with this dude. And
it's like I brought up last week. I will be okay to say, like, yes. I think it was a question I asked BC actually when I was wondering with the extension of Raiola, was it too early to give it to him just based on the 1 year of success, or would he have liked to see it come after we see the development of some of those young guys in the room like Sledge and Gatula? And if I remember correctly, he pointed out that it came at the right time, but it is something I still think about with those young recruits of once I see them develop, then I'll know for certain that Donovan Rayola's the guy.
For sure.
Like, for certain. Now, should you pay him ahead of time? Yeah. Based on the improvements that you saw last year? Sure.
Absolutely deserved. Yeah.
But with the improvements we saw, as you pointed out, from year 0 to year 1 of Coach Rule, it's night and day. It's not even close. The protection that these quarterbacks got this year, even though it wasn't, we'll call it amazing, but it was much better than what you saw in the last year of Scott Frost than the first year of Coach Rule. That right there is deserving of the price tag that Donovan Rayola got. And look, we talk about it a lot. The raise didn't come because of Dylan Raiola. So that's why we are focusing on the O-line growth in terms of the raise than we are the recruitment of Dylan Raiola. But I'm sure it helped. Like, I'm sure seeing that, hey, my uncle's locked up for the long term, maybe I'll come and be the next great thing at the university because I'll be working directly with my uncle who is protecting me, who's making sure that I'm going to perform to the best of my ability because that's his job, is to get these old linemen to give me time to throw.
Well, and again, the two things can be connected without being connected, right? And what that means is I don't think Donovan Rayola got paid in order to get Dylan Raiola here. I do think Donovan Rayola getting paid had an impact on how Dylan Raiola and Dominic Raiola felt about Nebraska, the coaching staff, and the way they take care of people who perform well and the way they keep their word to people who perform well. And now they kind of are who they say they are, right? Matt Rule the whole time was like, listen, I kept Donovan Raiola because I like Donovan Raiola. I think he's a good football coach, and I think he's going to do a good job with this offensive line, regardless of what that meant for Dylan Raiola. This is going back a year from when Donovan was retained. And the ability for Matt Rule to put his money where his mouth was, like the ship had sailed on Dylan Raiola, everybody thought, and Donovan still got the extension because he deserved it. It wasn't because they thought it was some last chance Hail Mary for Dylan. It was, hey, Donovan did a great job this year. He took this offensive line from putrid to above average in 1 year with the same dudes, with 2 full-time starters missing and Newilly missing a chunk of the year as well. He played some of this year with only 40% of his starting offensive linemen, and still they dramatically improved.
Feels like the offense played with 40% of themselves.
I mean, they played with like 40% of a quarterback most of the year, which was a big problem as well. But that was the other thing that I wanted to bring up. When you've got a guy at quarterback who actually has good pocket presence, which I think is low-key one of Dylan Raiola's best traits, is he has a really good feel in the pocket.
He's got good awareness.
Your offensive line all of a sudden looks so much better. And that's part of what we saw last year. Some of the deficiencies that we thought were on the offensive line, I genuinely think were quarterback issues. And not to put everything on the quarterbacks, but let's be honest, it's not like that was a great position for Nebraska last year. A lot of the issues with offensive line come down to a quarterback not knowing where to go or feeling phantom pressure or not being able to climb a pocket, right? Like, you're supposed to force guys to the outside. And if guys are trying to bail to the outside, all of a sudden they get a sack and it looks like the offensive line did a terrible job. Well, they're creating the pocket, right? So guys are going to get forced to the outside. You have to be able to climb up that pocket to deliver a throw. Nebraska's quarterbacks really struggled with that this year. And so it made the offensive line not look as good as I thought they were performing. When you've got a guy like Dylan Raiola who knows how to do that, who's got a really good pocket presence, all of a sudden you can make an above average offensive line look even better. And frankly, I think they're going to be better than above average next year anyway.
Now, going back to your initial question to wrap up the segment, the Dylan Raiola commitment is a little late in terms of what Nebraska could have had, right?
For helping out the class.
In terms of 5-star commitments. What they have in the room right now, I don't think is all that bad for DR's first year.
No,
what we saw out of Jalen Lloyd, even though he's a 3-star, Jalen Lloyd offers so much athletic ability and speed on the outside. I mean, shoot, at one point, I think Texas Tech had him for track and football. Does Nebraska have him for track too, or did he just stick with football? I can't remember.
I don't know if he's running track, but he's a world-class track athlete.
Right. I mean, and then you look at Malachi Coleman, who's a 4-star, one of the best receivers to come out of the state. Mm-hmm. You have Thomas Fedoni, who was a former 5-star. He was number 1 tight end
the best
in the group. Was
he was a 4. He was a high 4.
So a high 4, but he was the best tight end in his class.
Yeah, in the country.
You have dudes on this offense
Not
right
to mention, you've got another guy in that group with Carter Nelson that is the highest ranked tight end in this class. Now, he's got a little development to do, I think, still, but it's not like you have no guys there. And we didn't even mention the guy that the coaching staff thought was the furthest along in Jaden Doss. He's the guy that they thought was the best freshman receiver before he broke his hand. So you do have options. And don't forget, bunch of really, really athletic guys redshirted this year in that room as well. Not to say they won't get some more transfer wide receivers, but it's not like the room is bare.
And remember, a good quarterback can really elevate anybody's game.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio next.
We will be back.